Satnam Shivchankar, and today I'm absolutely delighted to be here with Tracy Adnich, who is one of my, can I say, favorite clients because she's been with me for such a long time, and that's why I wanted to bring her in today to chat with you. Tracy, welcome.
Hi.
Hey, how are you, love?
Good. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
All the way from Arizona in your new home.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be talking about that in a little while because that's pretty exciting stuff. So Tracy, to start off with, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself, like who you are, what you do, and who you are?
Okay. Well, I'm just me. I'm a mom and a wife and a nurse and all those nice things. I'm also the mom of a cat who's rolling all over me right now. I was born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio, and just recently moved out here to Phoenix, Arizona in my quest to find the life that I want. And yeah, I met Shiv about 3+ years ago. And even though things might look like they're very put together on the outside, I was a whole hot mess underneath. So
a hot mess. Yeah. What kind of hot mess were you back then, Tracy?
Oh, lots of problems.
Do you remember the thing you said you wanted? Okay. Go ahead. Sorry.
I didn't realize it at the time. You asked me a question when we very first started of what is your goal, Trace? What is your goal? And I said, I want to be like water off a duck's back. I want to just be able to roll with things and be able to chill out. Really what it was is I was so tightly wound and I was so full of anxiety and angst and depression and insecurities that I was just like this all the time. And really I let everybody else and everything around me control my life and control my emotions, but I didn't realize that was happening. I just kept thinking, oh, well, I have to be more laid back. I have to learn to just go with it, which is true. I did have to do some of that, but I also had to take back my own power. I needed to not let other people control me and not let other people influence me because they didn't really have my best interest in mind. And throughout these 3 years, I've learned to leave some abusive relationships and not really be held down by that anymore. So yeah, when I started this whole thing, I was in a very, very dark place. And you know, it's like digging out of a hole with a teaspoon, right? You just got to keep going. The steps are small, the scoops are small, but you just keep going and you can dig yourself out.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I look at you now and I know you just said you were raised in Cleveland and now you're in Arizona. And, you know, when we first started working together, you were saying that you and your husband had a plan, you had a daughter and you really wanted to spend some time. You didn't want to leave your family and you really thought it'd be about 10 years before you could move. Even though you really wanted to, it was like what you wanted to do. And then here you are 3 years later and you've moved. And it wasn't even that easy, right? Because for you to, back at that time when I first met you, your husband was working away. And so he actually he just came home weekends, right? Was it every weekend?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. My husband traveled every week. I was in Cleveland and he was in New York City. And he would come home for Saturday and Sunday and would go back out. So I'm taking care of a newborn baby and I'm working in the emergency room as a registered nurse, night shifts and on the weekend. And so nothing like working a 12-hour shift at night to then come home, not be able to sleep and have to take care of a newborn baby the whole rest of the day, just praying for a nap. You know, it was a very, very unhealthy lifestyle. And I was doing all of these really unhealthy coping mechanisms to deal with that stress. My big addiction is food and TV. And they are, they're soothing and they're also distractions. And I've noticed that as I've taken some of the distractions out of my life, I've tried to put new distractions in, right? And then those don't always work. And so it's just about trying to find what's real, right? I like to not focus on what my real problem is, where my husband's gone and so I'm lonely. He's gone, so I'm frustrated that I'm caring for this little one all by myself. I'm pissed off because she won't stop crying, right? But none of those things were me, right? That's me putting blame on them. And I think by nature, I am a negative person. I naturally think negative thoughts. And I have to work really hard to pause, think about whatever my negative thing is, and find a way to flip that narrative and find the positive. That is work for me. Does not come natural. I don't know if that's just part of like depression and anxiety, or if that's just kind of how my brain is wired. But when you get stuck in those negative thought patterns, food is such a great comfort, right? That sugar rush to the brain just kind of like makes things so much better. And it's like a full-on addiction. But you know what? When I started working with you and I started to get your happy back, I just thought, oh no, my problem is food and I don't exercise enough. So she'll just show me, okay, tell me exactly what to eat and how many times I have to exercise and I'll be good. Only to realize like that was so not, that's a very small piece of the pie for me. For me to find happiness, I was really dealing with a lot of other things. Sleep was huge, and personal time was huge. Nurturing my personal relationships was huge, and getting rid of those abusive relationships. That actually helped me find more happiness and more comfort. I've lost 30 pounds along the way, but that wasn't, I don't know. The 30 pounds doesn't really come to like the point of happiness. The 30 pounds was just like, oh, hey, look, I found that this way of dealing with my stress, walking alone for 30 minutes, that helps my stress. Well, apparently that also burns a few calories along the way. And right, so it's a very slow and steady thing to weight loss, but it's so much more empowering than that when I decided to take charge of my life and say, this is how I want to live. These are the priorities that I want. And I need to find somebody who will support me in that. And actually, you and the group supported me more, especially in the beginning of that process. My husband was not on board with that. And I eventually got him to come around, not only to be supportive of me, but to make his own healthy changes. He had his own addictions and his own way of dealing with the stress of our life and those kind of things. And it was tearing our marriage apart. But we slowly found a way to come together and do that on our own. And then the people who didn't support us, I can still love them, but I need to not rely on them, right? If they have different goals and different values, that's okay. But I can't keep sacrificing myself to keep them comfortable. And what I like about our Get Your Happy Back group is if I'm having a hard time, I can pop into the Facebook group, say, oh my God, blah, 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 whatever's happening. What do I do? Right? And they'll let me kind of rant. And they're like, okay, well, breathe. Breathe. And this might be a way you can get through. But then they also would praise me when I would finally do something really good. When I started reaching those milestones of like, hey, I'm exercising pretty often. I'm starting to lose weight. They praise you for those, where unfortunately my family wouldn't do that, right? My family actually does a lot of what I do. When I see someone who's doing better than me, I get jealous. I kind of get resentful. And a lot of those comparison things come into play. And that feels horrible. And then I realized that's how my family feels. I'm sorry that me doing better makes them feel horrible. but I can understand where it's coming
Yeah.
from, and finding that balance of love and independence was really big for me. But it took a couple rounds of Get Your Happy Back. The first couple rounds, I was a little all over the board. And again, I kept thinking, oh, okay, well, if I only drink water and whatnot, and then everything will come into, okay, yes, drinking water is important. And that was a good goal to have for that first 40 days. But that was just a very small step in the process. As I've done it a few rounds, I've gotten more out of it, you know.
Mm-hmm. That's why it's a lifetime program, baby.
Mm-hmm.
That's why. So yeah, I mean, I think I was talking to you a couple of weeks ago, and I said you didn't remember this, but there was a time when I was talking to you about going walking. You were hoping your neighbor would go with you because you had anxiety walking out to the supermarket. In fact, you couldn't walk to the supermarket. You would go in your car, but you had anxiety just going to the supermarket, and your husband wasn't home. And like you said, you were working 12-hour shifts. And then he would come home and, you've got to clean your house, go shopping, cook, and all of that stuff, and work. And then on your own with a newborn. And then your husband will come home at the weekend. Well, of course, he's been working as well all week. And then he's been traveling. And then he's just come home. And so then there's that whole expectation stuff going on. And then it's not quite as everyone expected it. And it's a lot of bloody hard work. And, and it's just nonstop. And the way that you guys have, you said that you thought you were a negative person. I don't think that you're a negative person at all from the outside. I think you're cautious. And I think that you have a very logical mind. And so I think that you will look at things and first you may see skeptical, I think would be a better word than negative, right?
Okay.
So I think you're more skeptic than that, because I find you to be very, very positive. So,
well, and I always say, fake it till you make it.
well, I don't know. I've had sessions. We've been working. We've done a lot. I know things. I know things about you. So, in knowing those things, I've seen you go through some. You've had a really challenging time, and seeing you go through that and the way that you dealt with it. That's not a negative person at all. That was a person whose grit runs really deep, but you just don't suffer fools gladly is one of the sayings we have in England. That I told that to somebody they hadn't heard it. So yeah, so doesn't suffer fools gladly. You're that's who you are. You don't suffer fools gladly. So if a fool comes along, then you're just going to be like So that's what I think. And yeah, so when you say you went through a couple of rounds to get your happy back, what Tracy's talking about is so each season we do a promoting habit and demoting habit, and they are small habits a lot of the times, because it's not really about the habits, like Tracy says, really, isn't it? It's not the food and the diet. It's about what's our mind doing. Like, where is our mind playing with us? And it's really hard to kind of get into our minds because it's in us. So one of the ways to do it is by using a habit, and you get your habit. Wait, I can't remember when you first did your water. So we said Tracy didn't drink water when I first met her. So that was her first task. She had a 9 to 5, a new job, set an alarm every hour and drink 8 ounces of water from 9 to 5. That was that. And if she did that, she's good. Did you do the water immediately, or I can't remember. Did you drink your water 8 times a day, or were there sometimes alarms where you didn't? You said, I didn't have time, or?
No, I usually, as soon as the alarm went,
you were really good, but you were noticing you were noticing some clear energy and kind of things from that. But yeah, so let me see.
Yeah, as I say, because that was at the very beginning, and that's when I started to make these changes of realizing the very first round we did the Wheel of Wellness. My very first score was 34
out of 100, and
that's pretty bad.
Well, good.
But looking at stuff, we realized, okay, sleep, spirituality, those were some very low points. But with sleep, I don't know, that was such a big thing for me, especially with my job. working the 12-hour nights. And then I tried 12-hour day shift. I'd work 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. And well, that wasn't any better, and it was just really, really exhausting. But to get through a night shift, I'm chugging tons of caffeine, right? I would still fall asleep driving home. That happened many times, and I'm very lucky I'm alive, kind of thing. So I love my job. I love being a nurse. I love helping people. But at what point in my own demise do I have to walk away from that? So I found a different job at the hospital that could use my nursing skills, but in a different way. And so I found an office job, and now I have Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. And so, wow, is that a change? It has its own stresses, but it makes it much easier for me to dedicate sleep time. I noticed that I stopped having the migraines. I would have massive migraines all the time. We'd go out to a show and I'd have to leave because I could not function anymore. And, you're laying in bed, all the lights are off, can't handle sound, you're vomiting, like all that kind of stuff. And that was so normal for me. It was debilitating. But I got used to it. Once I made that change with my job, and I made that change with my sleep, and then you added in the water component to that, within maybe 3 months, the migraines have stopped. And that's when I realized that my habits were causing so much of my physical pain, my emotional pain too, but my physical pain. And then I just kind of took that momentum and I kept going. Hold on, we have a little friend who's gonna come say hi.
Yay.
Hi. This is Bonsai. Hi, buddy. Yes, he does not want to be alone. But I used that momentum, and I still have my same job, and I asked the company. I said, "Hey, my family's going to move. Can I still have my job and I can do it from home?" And they said yes. I was like, okay, I should have asked for this a lot sooner. Right? There are so many things that we want. We're just not willing to ask for them. Okay. How about now? So yeah, it was cool to watch the job situation progress, still finding purpose, right? So finding purpose in my work, but finding a much better health balance for me. That was a big deal.
Took responsibility.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's just your whole story is all. That's what it is. All along the way, you've taken responsibility each step, and you've decided. You brought your husband home. He got another job, and he took like a 75% pay cut, 50% pay cut. I mean, it was a massive pay cut, but he took an absolutely massive pay cut to come home because you realized that, and you weren't. It's not that you're financially flush and you could afford for him to do that, but you realized you couldn't afford for him not to come home, that he needed to be home. And then once he came home and you became a family unit again, took time, but then now from there you could then have your strengths, right? But there was no strength.
Yeah, we went from being comfortable but stressed out and unhappy to living paycheck to paycheck. And that has a different kind of stress, but we were at least doing it together. But then different things happened. So when we moved from Ohio out to Arizona, we got to sell our house. And we were lucky because it sold for a little bit more than we bought it for. And we took that money and we paid off our debt. Right? I still have student loans, but again, a newfound freedom that we were looking forward to that we didn't expect. We just had to be willing to change. So now our paycheck to paycheck is paycheck to paycheck with a little extra, right? And that gives you breathing room. And that financial freedom was amazing what that felt like. That was more powerful than I was ever anticipating, because I didn't realize how much, again, I let other people control me for so long. And I was controlled by the credit card companies and what they're charging me for interest and how much of my monthly income that they were taking away because I bought some stupid garbage, a couple years earlier. And to be free of their chains was wonderful. It literally felt like getting unhandcuffed kind of thing.
Wow, it's just beautiful. And
but if we wouldn't have sold our house, if we wouldn't have been willing to make the move out here, we would have never had that ability.
Yeah. So I think each path has its challenges, right? And so it's the picking your challenges, which we talk about that in like week 2 or something of Get Your Happy Back, because nothing's without challenge. But like you said, you were more secure, but very stressed out and unhappy. And then paycheck to paycheck, which might think, oh, less secure, but a stronger unit. And from there you could build out, which from here, there was no strength. There was no, in fact, you were falling apart. And so, yeah, it's just amazing to see it unfold and to actually see you here in your house in Arizona. And now you got hiking and things, right?
Yeah, we have different ways to be outside. So we chose Arizona for a couple of reasons. So if you don't know, Cleveland, Ohio has this complex, right? Everybody thinks, oh, it's terrible here, and look how tough we are because we put up with it. But as a whole, the city thinks very low of itself. It is actually the gloomiest place in the country to live. We have 280 days of clouds in Cleveland. So sunshine is not very plentiful there. The summers are gorgeous. It's just the rest of the year is not so great. And so we found that we were in the house the vast majority of the year. And I'm not one to snowboard and ski. I've tried, that's not my thing. I don't enjoy that or enjoy the cold. So we tried to find a place where we could be outside and where we could have sunshine. I had gone through my 3rd or 4th round of taking prescribed heavy doses of vitamin D, so your number is supposed to be about 25 kind of thing. And I was at 5. And we could not get my vitamin D levels up. And it's like, well, for crying out loud, just go out in the sun. But I didn't have that. I didn't have sun. So we wanted a place where we could be outside, a place where we could be active, something that was a more active lifestyle other than sitting there watching TV, right? Because that was another one of my crutch things. So we wanted to find a place where we could swim, or we had a backyard that we could play in with my daughter, something like that. And we picked Arizona because we could afford it. We couldn't afford California. That would have been great, but
nobody can these days.
Nobody can. So you find your goal and you modify it. You adapt it to the resources that you have. And so we're still really happy because where we're at is such an improvement from where we were, right? We lost being around my family, which is a huge emotional thing. But I have not been outside this much. I've only been here for 2 months. I have not been outside this much probably in 8 months of my time, in Ohio. And I've never had so much color on my skin, and I'm still pretty pale, right?
And there's still a whole summer left.
Right. So it's, it was strategic. It was strategic how we chose to come here.
Well, I think the way you guys did it is very, very much in the feel of Get Your Happy Back, in that it's the feel. So quite often we can get really caught up in our plans and say, we want this, 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 and this. I'm going to get this job. I'm going to go here. Whereas you were working from, okay, what do we need? We need to get my husband home. That's what we need to do. So that was the first thing. And then it was like, okay, well, now we need to move. What do we want? You wanted warmer weather. You got to know what you wanted the feel of. And yes, California looked good, but it was too expensive. Okay, so what was it about California that we liked, and where can we find those things somewhere else? And so then things can happen, right?
Yeah.
And then things can unfold, and he gets a job there, and your job can transfer there. Like, hello, how ideal can this get when you start asking? And wow.
Well, and it's always about setting more goals for yourself. So when I first started Get Your Happy Back, it was like, okay, I just got to get through this first round. I'm gonna do the water, and everything's gonna be great. And I didn't understand why you had made it a lifetime program, because I really thought like one and done and I'm good, only to realize I need to keep coming back and doing this again. I need to keep working on other things. I need to keep changing in other areas. And that was shocking to me, the second round. But now that I've done it like a few times, it's like, okay. And now sometimes I get really busy and I've skipped a season. But I've also known that when I skipped a season, when I came back to the one after, that one seemed to strike a nerve more than any of the other ones. Excuse me. And it drives me. So I've actually gone back to school. So I'm doing an online school program to get my master's in nursing. Again, because what is my goal? I do a 9-to-5 job, work from home, but wouldn't it be really cool to have a work from home job that didn't have such strict hours? So that way I can be able to teach. I teach now, but in a different way. And so again, it's taking that goal and kind of melding it. It's painful, right? Going to school is not fun. It's a tax on my time and my money and all that kind of stuff. But by putting in the hard work now, I'm hoping that it will pay off with the quality of life later, so that when my daughter, she's only 4 now, so she's not even in kindergarten. But I'm thinking about the long term. Pardon me. So when she's in school, you know what? I want to be able to be like the mom that goes to like her class and says, hey, I'm here for picnic day or whatever it is. Or I can be the chaperone for the field trips, right? I want to be able to be present with her. So to do that, I have to be able to have income that allows me flexibility with my time. And so that's why I was going for teaching. And you know what? When she's off for summer break, I can be off for summer break. So it's a bit of a manipulation game, but I'm trying to find something to make it work. And Get Your Happy Back is helping to remind me as I struggle with all this. Oh my God, I have another homework assignment. That it's part of the plan. It's working the steps.
Yeah. And you know, and the reason, like we meet 4 times a year. So if you're watching and wondering, we meet 4 times a year for what we call a practice session. So, you know, I'm really big on giving tools, but also like putting them into bloody practice, right? Because what's the point in learning something and then not knowing, like not actually putting it into practice? So we do meet 4 times a year, and that for the lifetime members, which is everybody, you know, you don't have to come 4 times a year. You don't do anything actually. You don't register once, right? I hope Tracy will probably confirm this. You register once and everything comes to you. I try to make things really simple. You don't have numbers to sign into the call. You haven't got to go into this link and then put in this code and all of like you just press play and off you go. Occasionally we'll have tech issues, but we'll sort those out. But I do try to make it very, very, very seamless. And then you drop in when you want, you know, and that private Facebook group is open all year round. And that's where the support comes in. And I think we've got like 8 countries right now. I think it's South Africa, Australia, UK. We've got, where's Liliana? Germany, France. I said Australia, US. Yeah, like, so wherever you are in the world, you can sign in. And yeah, it's really about, like, I've been doing 40-day practices since 2002. So it's 15 years. So I've been doing 40-day practices for 15 years. That's why I made it a lifetime program, because I know that with this work is done when we're dead. And that's it. This work is done when we're dead. Because until then, there's you know, we're here, and we're not perfect. We're not supposed to be perfect. In fact, up here on my wall it says, "Good enough imperfect action is your best friend." And within imperfect is I'm perfect, and it's about us finding that I'm perfect in the imperfections, right? And that's a lifetime thing, and we can't do it all at once either. So, you know, people want to go, oh, I want to do this, 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 and this. Well, that's why we don't get anything done. And we find ourselves 5 years later, 10 years later, and we're still like, oh, shit, I'm still here. You know, you might still be struggling in Ohio. Maybe you've got a little more money, you've got a little more fluidity, but your husband's still not back. And you're still like, and your marriage is even worse because it's been so long. And this is just normal now. And yes, your daughter, she's used to having a dad who's over there and a mom and who's all of that. Just very, very different. And so we take these things, we work on them one little bit at a time, and then we can start to see it. You know, I keep talking right now about it being like IRS interest. It compounds like an MF, you know, like the benefits of these practices, they do over time. And I'm realizing now, because I'm getting 15 years into mine, I'm going, whoa, actually, some pretty cool shit happening to me, even now, as I get to know my mind. And that's really what Get Your Happy Back's about, even though it doesn't seem like that, but it's really about us getting to know our minds and how we work. Because it's easy for someone to say how someone else's mind works. How does your mind work? When you say, you know, I'm done with fast food or whatever, or, you know, I remember we talked about this one.
That was a big thing.
That was a big one. You couldn't drive by without going in. And so it was just trying to get you at some point to be able to just drive by, at least sometimes, you know, just give you a little muscle that you drove by that time. And you did, right? And maybe you still go, I don't know. But you don't know, you see, I mean, but it's different. And so, but those little things, because as you said, when you were anxious before, you didn't make agreements with yourself that you kept. And so you'd be negative about that, of course, because you'd be like, oh, yeah, like I'm going to do that, like that's going to work, or like that's going to count, like that's going to make a bloody difference with all I've got going on. And then you start doing it and you realize, oh, I'm actually kind of powerful. I'm actually pretty like badass into here. And, you know, that's you are really badass into there. And
well, and I think maybe this will help other people who are trying to think about the program. One of the things that made me nervous going into it was the spirituality component. So when people talk about spirituality, people can get kind of touchy, right? So I'm a Christian and that kind of thing. And when we talk about like the solstice, people are like, oh no, that's scary, bad, like pagans or whatever. Okay. There's still full moons and all that kind of stuff. And it's actually more about like being in touch with nature, in touch with the gifts that God has given us, right? God gives us different seasons. The other thing is understanding like 40 days. Yeah, 40 days is, it's very powerful. You see it across many, many religions that there's something about the 40-day mark. Did you truck it through a desert for 40 days? Did you fast for 40 days? Did you go to the top of a mountain for 40 days? Right. And so finding that, oh, I can still be a Christian and I can still go on my own spiritual journey and I don't know, religion's not the right word, but if I can practice my faith and not lose my faith by doing a program like this, right? Like you don't, I try not to push my faith on other people, but I don't ever feel like our group is trying to push their spirituality on me, right? Like I know some people will like read cards or like do like astrology or whatnot. And like all of that is okay. I have never felt, I've never felt like an outsider. I've never felt like I was a pain in the butt because I was a Christian. And actually I have found more connection with some of the things that I learn at church as I do here in our groups, right? It's just different words, right? It's a lot of the same stuff, but you have to hear it in such a way that it makes sense and you start to do it, right? Again, we realized when we moved out here, well, I went to a new church. And so now I have a new pastor and wow, this guy is a whole lot more inspiring than the last guy, right? Now, awesome. He might not be saying anything different, but it's the delivery of what he's saying, right? Where, you know, if anger is one of your problems, well, what did I learn from you? I have got to learn to forgive and find love for the person that has hurt me. If that is not one of the most Christian things ever, I don't know what is, right? It's the exact same thing that the church people tell me, but for some reason, when you told it to me, it felt much more personal and it felt like I could do it. And letting go of that anger that I had towards the person who was so abusive towards me has just taken such a weight off of my shoulders, right? So not having to lose my faith, not having to lose my religion in order to work a program was wonderful. that was a
Oh,
big deal for me.
oh, that's beautiful. That is, because I'm very much of the opinion. One of my Buddhist teachers, Rabina Curtin, fantastic little woman. She's like 4'9" or 4'10", I don't know. Buddhist nun, bald head, walks barefoot everywhere. She's Australian, she's a powerhouse. And she does a lot of work on death row with death row inmates. They make very good Buddhist students because they're very they're very dedicated to their practice, And so she was talking one day to her students, and they were saying, "Is it God? Is it Buddha? Is it Allah? Is it?" And she sat there and she said, held her hand up like this, and she goes, "It is what it is. You can call it Mickey Mouse for all you want, but it is what it is." And from that day, so for me, no, I don't necessarily relate to the God word because, different things. But even within Kundalini Yoga, with that word actually means generating, organizing, and destroying principle. How about that? Yeah, so, and then just realizing that all of these things that we are all calling to the same name, and that faith is a beautiful thing. Whatever name it's in, it is a beautiful thing for people to have. I had this. Okay, so maybe I would have thought that if someone was crying in church before, I might have been like, I was brought up in England where we're forced to go, and at school as well, and so I had a different kind of view of it. And then one day I had this vision where I was like, wow, that's just amazing. The person who can sit there and cry in the church to have that deep of a faith is just most beautiful thing. What a beautiful thing to have, that it's something that cannot be taken away from you. It's yours. And that's what I was looking for in my life that I didn't have before. I didn't have a name for my faith. I didn't have and so once I came across Buddhism and a little bit more, that was like, okay, now you're speaking my language. But it's like you said, we're all saying the same thing. We're all saying, yep, we are one. Let's love each other. Let's be kind. Yep. Let's look after each other. Let's forgive, so that we can move on. And so that's beautiful.
I think one of the main principles of whether you are Christian or Buddhist or Muslim or Jewish, whatever it might even be, one of the big principles is, in order to feel grateful for what you have, you need to give to somebody else, right? Otherwise, you don't appreciate what you have. You're always wanting more, right? You start to get greedy and that kind of thing. And in the very beginning, I even told you, Shivi, you're the therapist that I could never afford, right?
I'm not a therapist, but
right. Well, yeah.
But no.
But it was, you were willing to give of yourself to help lift me up, right? To get me out of the bad place that I was, to get me to be a happier person, to be a better person, and that kind of thing. So if I can then pay it forward and find somebody to help, it keeps that positive energy going. And that's what it is. We need more love. We need more compassion. We need more happiness to spread. We've got too much anger, too much depression, too much resentment. And for me, it was too much playing the victim, right? I was always the role of the victim, and learning to drop that and not have to be like, hey, don't you know my story's pretty terrible? Like, did you know that I was divorced a year and a half after I was married? Hey, did you know I was then widowed after that? Well, that sucks. Well, hey, I got married for a third time, and hey, that marriage is falling apart, right? And I was always that, woe is me, don't you feel bad? Look at how cruddy this is. And then to take that and have your compassion that you gave to me, the charitableness that you gave to me, help me look at my life in a positive way, drop the victim title, drop the victim role, and be like, I am a strong, empowered woman who is going to go out and get what I want. And what I want is actually less, right? I want less stimulation. I want less chaos in my life, right? I want the water off the duck's back. I don't want, I don't have like that power hungry thing. But if you wouldn't have been kind enough to give to me, I would have never been able to get to where I'm at. So that's where I'm thankful, not only for you, but also for the program that you created.
Yeah, well, I fell in love with you the day that I asked you what your goal was, because you first came to me. It was really about losing weight, and then after it was like 3 weeks that we've been working together, I asked you what your goal was, and you said you wanted to be like water off a duck's back, and that's just stayed with me forever because, again, it's exactly it's the when you know how you want to feel, then you can reverse engineer that. And so, but if you say, I want this, like if you'd have said, I want to move to Arizona, I want to do this. If you'd have said I want my work at home job, I want to move to Arizona, all from the beginning, it would have been very hard to reverse engineer that, because now we've got to, wait, but you left it open. You started the feelings of what you wanted, and then from that, we could then work with, because the weight the weight that we carry is not about the diet and exercise anyway. We talk about that and Get Your Hat Back. It's not about diet. In fact, for anyone who watches House of Cards, I always do that. I probably do a very bad Kevin Spacey now, but I'm always like, it's not about diet and it's not your fault, right? So it's not about diet and it's not your fault, right? So it's all the other stuff that's weighing us down. It's literally the toxic relationships. It's your husband working away. It's all of these other things are weighing us down. So it takes a while to have those unravel. But once we unravel those, then we can really start to get into who we are, and then the other stuff will happen. Because that's what happened with me. I tried losing weight since I was 11 years old. I'll be 50 this month. And so I was 35 when I stopped dieting. That's still, 24 years of dieting. And even then I stopped dieting, but I still had to find my way over the last 16 years. And it's not anything that is always over. I'm about to go badass on these people who are saying that they can crush your cravings forever and never have another craving again. Like, what the bullshit people are putting out there. There is no forever, but there is right now, and there is learning how the tools so that when we get the challenges, which is probably, this is really what I think Get Your Head Back is about too, Tracy, right? Is that you have those first rounds of calls that are 5 calls, and you get them every season. But as you go through the program, you get to know how to work your habits. So that becomes less, you don't have to do as much work on that side because you now know how to work your habits. But it really starts to build on that, right? It's, what was I going to say? It's, it's like building a muscle.
I think of it like, it's ever changing.
Yeah.
Right. My life is ever changing. My stresses are ever changing. And I might do whatever this diet is or whatever this technique is in this season.
Mm-hmm.
And that might be what gets me through.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? In a year or two from now, I might have to adapt. I might have to change that. And to not associate that change with failure.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
To flip it to positive. Hey, I'm adaptable.
Right.
I am not so rigid that if I don't do it exactly this way and I don't follow this plan exactly this way, then that's it. Just throw in the towel.
Yeah.
That's not what it is. And because you do it with the seasons and you do it over and over and over again, you always have that chance to change.
Yeah, I think it's like New Year's, like if you have resolutions and you think, well, oh, wait, New Year, I'm going to do this. Well, Get Your Happy Back. It's like having 4 New Years a year, and it's not forever. So it's not this whole, like, just do something for 40 days. And then if you don't do it after that, it doesn't matter. It's just this getting used to like doing something and making up your mind. And Tracy's just a wonderful example. I'm so happy you managed to share this with us today, Trace. I don't know what else I can ask you, really. I think you've really covered quite a lot. So if someone's thinking about it, how much time is it going to take? A lot of time, Trace. Like, come on, I've got like a kid, there's my husband, and I'm going to school, and I just don't know if I've got enough time to how much have I got to do?
No, because it's 1 call a week, and the call is only an hour. And because I don't have to call in at a certain time, right? It just comes to my email. What I have been known to do is when I was driving to work, I would play it and then I'd have to pause it. And then I'd try and pick it up a little bit later. And no matter how long it took me, it's still only an hour. I have learned that one of my practices was my husband is going to have to take care of this kid because I'm going to get 1 hour, right? And so I found out that was a way for me to build in me time. And so 1 hour a week. But then I found out that I would spend a lot of time throughout the week thinking and reflecting back on what that was. Pardon me. So even though it's technically only 1 hour, which is no big deal, that's a TV show.
Right.
Right. Because TV was my thing. And so I had to negotiate one TV show a week.
Mm-hmm.
But it stays with you. So it's not work to think about it later.
Mm-mm.
It's just trying to find places to apply it.
I love the places I like are the supermarket line, sitting in traffic. I mean, I think a lot of these things, you know, we don't have to sit there and be like,
Yeah, the very
let me
first,
meditate on that.
The very first season that you ever did, the very, very, very first one. Remember, I'm sitting there and I've got a notebook and a pen and I'm taking notes. I'm trying to write down oh, that was a good line. That was a good line. Right. And I was just so focused on taking notes that I wasn't listening or feeling or anything like that. I learned to forget the notebook. I just need to listen. And the car ended up being a big time for me.
Yeah, and that's another reason why you lifetime too, is because you can listen to it. And a lot of the members say that I remember Julie, when I interviewed her just recently, she said, and she called me in the 3rd season, and she's like, oh my God, these calls this season are off the hook. And I was like, they're the same as the 1st season. But she'd heard a whole bunch of new stuff in them. And she's like, well, I heard all this new stuff. And of course you do, because there's quite a lot in an hour. I mean, it's something like 8,000 to 10,000 words. And we've got transcripts now, which we didn't have in the beginning, because Get Your Happy, that was, you know, it was just 5 weeks at the beginning. And now we've got transcripts and we had bonus calls and there's all kinds of extra stuff comes in now. But yeah, so what happens is the calls don't necessarily change, but you do. And so when you relate to them differently, you see different things. It's just like, I remember we bought a truck for market. It was a GMC 1500 long bed. 8-foot long bed. I didn't know what that was. Yeah, it was gorgeous. Love my truck. Didn't know what it was. But after I saw it on Craigslist and was going to go and look at it, on the road, what did I keep seeing? GMC 1500 8-foot long bed trucks. Everywhere. I saw them everywhere. Right? Because that was now in my consciousness. I wasn't seeing all the other trucks. So that's what happens. And that's why it's so powerful, because we can keep coming back and we can just keep working it. And like I say, I've been doing it for 15 years. And I'm definitely this year starting to really see some like huge benefits. I'm really excited for their group.
I'm excited to do the wheel again, because I skipped this last season.
So we'll just talk about that quickly, because you mentioned that, right? So we do have this wheel, the wheel of wellness, and it's split into 10 areas, and it will give you a score out of 100 in your 10 areas of life. So how do you find the wheel, Tracy?
I find it reflective of whatever my emotional state is at that time. And so generally when I do it at the beginning of a season and I'm all gusto, I'm excited to like get working on this stuff. But then actually if I do it again, even just like a week or two later, it's different. Like my emotions and my strengths and my weaknesses are always so fluid. But I'm not always in tune with what they are. So if I can sit down, it takes less than 5 minutes. If I sit down and just evaluate and assign a number and add it up, hey, okay, I need to shift gears here a little bit because I know that this part over here isn't doing so hot. And yeah, I think you had told me about a mom and a daughter would sit at the kitchen table once a week and do it together. Now I can't get anyone to do it with me. My husband's like, yeah. But it's helpful to me. But for some reason, I only do it when we're in our group, when we're in our 40 days. So maybe that's something I should expand on. But again, I don't beat myself up for not doing it.
Right. Well, because you've got a place for it, you see. You've created a space in your life that you know, this is where I go to work on these things. So that's what I was saying about it, like being New Year, that you like, oh, you know, I really need to work on this. Oh, you know what? Summer solstice season's coming up. I can use that as my promoting habit, or I can use that as my demoting habit. Now you've got a place to actually go and do it, rather than being like, oh, well, I guess we'll start Monday. Oh, but then that's Janet's birthday on Tuesday and we're going to go out. And then, that weekend, when's it going to be? Never. So the Wheel of Wellness it does take less than 5 minutes to do. And it can really show you where your life's shitty and then where to start working it and where to stop working it, because that's the biggest part, right? Is the wheel will show you those places that you keep working on diet and exercise and it's just not working with the rest of it. You stop those, like you literally stop them. Stop dieting, stop exercising, basically say F that, and we go work somewhere else. And then it will come around to there. It will, because that's what it does. It's magic is what it is. Well, I think that's, because you said the first one was 35, your score, which you said was bad. It could also be good in that what we say is the bigger your gap score, the difference between 35 and 100, which for Tracy obviously was 65. That meant she had 65 points that she could make up. Like, it's just like losing weight. The more you've got to lose at the beginning, the quicker it's going to happen. So if she had 35 points to make up, then, might have been hard. It's a little more challenging, but with 65, you could just, in a couple of areas, add 1 or 2 points. You're not trying to take it from 35 to 80. Try and take it from 35 to 42, 42 to 50, just increasing like that. Or you may have a big jump sometimes, but that's not necessarily the case. And then what happens is it'll start compounding and then it will go up because you start getting some stability. But like you said, you realize that we're not static. So your happiness, your emotions, your spirituality, your sleep, all of these things could fluctuate. There could be a 7 one time, it could be a 5 another time, because it depends what else is going on all around. Because we're not static people. And so, well, my love, thank you so much. I mean, I've just taught, I've had you talking.
Yeah, I do that a lot.
I know, you said before, just make sure there's no dead time. I was like, there'll be no dead time. Right? You said, don't have dead air. Rescue me.
Boring.
Dead air is boring, she says, rescue me. And look at her go. So yes, if you'd like to come and join Get Your Happy Back, or if you got any questions, you can come to onewomanrevolution.tv/next step, because that's what we do. We take the next step. And right now for this year, you get $200 off. You register for half price and you will become a lifetime member and get everything that we're putting in. We're putting lots of new things in. What have we got coming this season, Tracy? I can't remember. We had our 40-day Kiss by Kundalini. So there's a daily email that goes out every day during the season with a little nugget of knowledge. It was supposed to be 1 or 2 lines, but ended up being mostly a video. And then, we've got some cool, this, I'm going to be talking about the skinny on getting skinny within Get Your Happy Back. So I'm going to be talking more about my weight loss journey over the last 16 years. And then especially this year, I just released 26 pounds in this first 5 months of the year. And I'm still quite in awe because it really was very easy. But I think it's all the work we've done before in the Get Your Happy Back and my seasons as well. So come and join us over there if that sounds like, if you like Tracy and you want a little me time and you want to get yourself sorted out, and just look how brilliant she's done. I mean, just absolutely brilliant, Tracy. And I think just going back to your story, just briefly, that I think what you had a story that, I mean, you were very young and you had a lot happen. And I think quite often it's not that you were the victim. It's just that no one really, that story wasn't acknowledged, and so it became the story, but it wasn't acknowledged as, wow, that's a freaking lot to go through. And let's see what we can, what's in there, and so I think that once you got permission to actually be able to go into that story and feel some of the pain that you just kind of had to go past, because there was so many layers in all of it and it was just so complicated that I think that's so I don't want you to think that you were necessarily so much of a victim. I think you didn't have anywhere for your story to go, and there was no anchor for it to become the foundation to show you how strong you really are because of that story, because you got through that story. Right. And so I mean, I just really, you are like the most brilliant person.
Thank you.
And I do love you very much. So I think we'll call it a day there for our little interview. And I want to thank you so much, Tracy, because it's very brave to come and be interviewed and to talk and to be so honest about where you've come from and where you're going. And I only see like the most amazing things. And what an example to your daughter that you are of how to be in a relationship. You know, we talked about that was one of your big things, was that you needed to sort this out because your daughter was going to learn from you. So with the people who are toxic with you, and then with your relationship even with your husband, the way that you had to sort these things out and provide new boundaries and then enforce them, which is and you did, step by step. You took those deep breaths and you did things, and then now you're just like, oh my God, I'm free of those people, you know, in a way that you can still love them, as you said. So you didn't have to get rid of them. You can love them, but from a different place.
Yeah. And also to learn to be more relaxed in every situation, rather than getting so worked up over everything. If I can stay even keel, my daughter learns to be even keel. So she's kind of going through the threes, even though she's 4, where she does the temper tantrums, right? And she very easily gets worked up. So if you come into a situation and you're cranky and you're on fire, she instantly feeds off of that. And what a great mirror that is, right? Because not only do I demonstrate for her how to be in relationships, I'm demonstrating for her how to keep your shit together. Yeah. Right? You cannot have your head blowing off every time you feel the slightest offense. So something I've been working on, that I'm hoping that I can teach her this, that her journey in life, she might have more tools to deal with those challenges.
I love that. That's beautiful. Well, with that, you know, that's a lot of stuff on Get Your Habit Back. If you've still got questions, you can send me a message and we can talk about it. I'd be happy to chat with you. Otherwise, you can register at onewomanrevolution.tv/next step. Tracy, it's been an absolute pleasure having you here. I love you so much. Satnam, baby.
Bye. Bye-bye.